I still remember the exact moment I realized I wasn't really part of my family, not in the way my brother, Ryan, was. It wasn't during some big fight or long history of rivalry. It was at my parents' kitchen table, the afternoon after Ryan's wedding. Everyone was laughing, glowing from the celebration that had cost $50,000, a gift from my parents to their golden boy. I was sipping coffee, half listening, when my mom slid a small envelope across the table toward me. "Just something small for you too, sweetheart," she said with that polite, distracted smile parents give when they've already moved on to another conversation. Inside was a $50 Amazon gift card. $50. For context, I had worked 2 jobs through college because my parents said they couldn't afford tuition help. I drove a 15-year-old car with a duct-taped mirror. When Ryan got engaged, they threw him an engagement party, paid for the catering, and even covered his honeymoon flights. When I got promoted to project lead at my tech firm last year, the first in our family to ever hit 6 figures, I got a "that's great, honey" text. And now, sitting there at that glittering table full of champagne glasses and leftover cake, I was holding a $50 gift card, handed to me like a consolation prize for existing. It wasn't even about the money. It was about the message. Ryan's success was something to be celebrated. Mine? Something to be tolerated. I looked at my mom and dad, both glowing with post-wedding pride, and I felt something inside me shift. A quiet, burning kind of realization that this wasn't just favoritism. It was hierarchy. Ryan was the heir. I was the afterthought. I could have laughed it off. I could have gone home, spent the gift card on groceries, and kept pretending I didn't care. But I didn't. Something about that moment, the smug way my dad patted Ryan's back and said, "You've made us proud, son," it broke something open inside me. I went home that night, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at that cheap envelope for hours. And then I opened my laptop. See, what my family never realized about me was that while Ryan was out partying through college on their dime, I was quietly building something. A startup idea. A side hustle that had started as a just-for-fun app project and had turned into something real, something big. At that point, it was still under the radar, but it was growing fast. And that night, after the wedding, I made myself a promise: if they saw me as small, I'd make myself impossible to ignore. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew one thing for sure: someday soon, my parents were going to understand the price of underestimating me. And they wouldn't get a gift card this time. They'd get a bill. Because if they could spend $50,000 celebrating Ryan's wedding, they could damn well see what success looks like when it doesn't come from their wallet. And oh, they would. They just didn't know it yet. I've heard people say that every family has a golden child and a forgotten one. In my family, I didn't even need to guess which one I was. My name's Leela Parker, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the supporting character in my own life story. My older brother Ryan was the type of kid who could crash mom's car, and somehow she'd still make him pancakes the next morning. He was magnetic, the kind of person everyone wanted to be around. The fun one. The future businessman. And me. I was the quiet one who stayed in her room, reading and coding on an old, flickering laptop. I didn't cause trouble, didn't ask for much, and apparently, that made me invisible. When we were kids, it was small things. Ryan got the bigger slice of pizza, the new sneakers, the hugs after games. But as we grew up, those small things snowballed into something uglier. Ryan got attention. I got responsibility. When I was 10, Dad spent weekends helping Ryan build model planes. When I asked for help on a school science project, he said he was too tired after work. When Ryan turned 16, he got a shiny used Mustang for his birthday. When I turned 16, I got a reminder that insurance costs were too high. But the moment that still burns in my memory happened when I was 17. I had just gotten accepted into a prestigious summer program for young coders. It was my dream, the kind of opportunity that could change everything for me. I ran to tell my parents, clutching the acceptance letter like it was gold. Mom looked up from her phone and smiled weakly. "That's nice, honey. But can we afford it?" Before I could answer, Dad added, "We need to save for Ryan's college fund, remember?" They didn't even ask how much it cost. They just dismissed it. That night, I sat in my room and realized something I shouldn't have had to learn at 17. In my house, love came with a price tag, and I couldn't afford it. So I stopped trying. In college, I worked 2 jobs. I took online freelancing gigs and learned how to build apps while sitting behind the counter at a gas station during graveyard shifts. My parents barely called, except for holidays. When they did, they'd ask about Ryan, how his job hunt was going, how his girlfriend was doing. When I mentioned I'd been promoted to lead developer at my internship, Dad said, "That's good, sweetie. Just remember to stay humble. Stay humble." That became their favorite line whenever I achieved something. Ryan's success was celebrated, mine was softened. I tried to convince myself I didn't care. That their approval didn't matter. But deep down, it did. Because no matter how much I accomplished, I still wanted to be seen, not as the self-sufficient one, not as the backup plan, but as their daughter. Years passed. I graduated with honors, got my first real tech job, and moved to Dallas. I built a small team, started developing an app that slowly began gaining attention. I was finally building something that mattered, something that was mine. But I still couldn't shake that feeling of being invisible. Until that wedding weekend. The moment my mom handed me that cheap little envelope, that $50 gift card, it was like the universe finally snapped something inside me. All those years of silence, of being the strong one, came crashing down. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want their approval. I wanted justice. Because if they couldn't see my worth, then I'd show them in a way they'd never forget. Not through yelling. Not through tears. Through success, the kind that couldn't be ignored. And that's exactly what I plan to do. When I tell people my company started with a breakup and a cheap laptop, they think I'm joking. But that's the truth. After college, I landed a decent job at a mid-sized tech firm in Dallas. Good pay, stable hours, predictable routine. My parents were mildly impressed, mostly because it meant they didn't have to worry about me financially. My brother, Ryan, was already married by then, working at our uncle's construction business. My parents still talked about him like he was changing the world. I was 25, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with more coffee mugs than friends, and trying to pretend that being independent felt like freedom instead of loneliness. Then, one night, my then-boyfriend, Aaron, told me he thought I was too focused on work. He said, "You're obsessed with proving something all the time. You should just relax, like Ryan. Your family loves you. You don't have to win all the time." I remember looking at him, someone who had never worked a weekend in his life, and realizing I was dating another version of the same voice that had always tried to shrink me. So, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "You're right," packed his things, and watched him walk out. That night, sitting in the dim light of my apartment, I opened my laptop. I'd been toying with an idea for months. An app that could connect small local businesses with freelance developers and designers. No middlemen, no inflated agency fees. I called it Bridge, because that's what I wanted it to be. A bridge between people with dreams and people with skills. Everyone told me I was crazy. My co-workers laughed. You think you can take on Upwork? Fiverr? You'd need millions in funding. My parents didn't even pretend to understand. My dad said, "Why would you risk a good job for a silly app? You should be saving for a house." Ryan. He just smirked and said, "That's cute, Leela. Let me know when it actually makes money." So, I stopped talking about it. And started building it. I'd work all day at my regular job, come home, eat something microwaved, and then code until 2 a.m. I read startup guides, watched free lectures, taught myself basic UI design, and cold emailed strangers to test the beta version. For months, it went nowhere. Downloads trickled in. Bugs piled up. I almost quit twice. Then, one day, a small bakery in Austin used Bridge to find a freelance web designer, a mom working from home. Their new website helped them triple their sales. The bakery owner posted a review that went viral in a small business Facebook group. Overnight, my inbox exploded. In 3 months, we went from 200 users to 10,000. I brought on 2 freelancers to help manage the platform. By the end of the year, I quit my day job and incorporated Bridge officially. I didn't tell my family right away. I wanted to wait until it was real. The first time I mentioned it, we were at dinner for Ryan's birthday. I said, quietly, I actually launched my own company. Mom smiled politely. "That's nice, dear. Is it like a blog?" Ryan chuckled. "Let me guess, one of those apps that no one uses." I laughed along, but something in me hardened that night. Because they still didn't see me. They still didn't get it. So, I made a new promise to myself. I wouldn't try to make them proud. I'd make them jealous. And I had no idea how soon I'd get that chance. Because within the next 2 years, Bridge was about to explode, and my parents, the ones who couldn't spare a dime for my dreams, were going to come knocking on my door. And when they did, I wasn't sure if I'd open it. Success is a funny thing. When you don't have it, people pity you. When you finally get it, the same people start to resent you. It took about 2 years for Bridge to become something real. What started as a side project turned into a full-scale company with employees, investors, and real revenue. I went from coding in my apartment to running meetings in a downtown office with glass walls and a skyline view. At first, I didn't know how to process it. The girl who grew up hearing, "Don't expect too much," was now being invited to speak at tech panels and featured in local business magazines. And yet, I didn't tell my parents right away. It wasn't out of spite, not yet. It was fear. A part of me still didn't believe I deserved it, or maybe I just knew they'd find a way to make it smaller than it was. But word gets around. One day, my mom called out of the blue. "Sweetheart, your Aunt Carol sent me a link to some article about your company. Something about helping small businesses." I paused. "Yeah. That's Bridge." "Oh," she said, her voice soft and hesitant. "That's nice." There it was again. That word. Nice. Not amazing. Not "we're proud of you." Just nice. But what really twisted the knife was what came next. She added, almost as an afterthought, "You know, your brother's been having a rough time with the construction company. Maybe you could give him some advice. Or, I don't know, a job." A job. The same brother who mocked me for chasing my silly app. The same parents who couldn't spare tuition, but had written a $50,000 check for his wedding. And now, they wanted me to help him. I didn't say no. I just said, "Let's talk about it later." But inside, something cold settled in. That was the moment I realized, my family didn't see me as successful. They saw me as useful. Still, I tried to be the bigger person. When Ryan called me the next day, sounding more humble than I'd ever heard him, I agreed to meet for coffee. He showed up late, wearing designer sunglasses and fake humility. "Hey, sis," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Heard your little company's doing well. Congrats. Little company." I smiled tightly. "Thanks. How's the construction business?" He sighed dramatically. "Not great. Permits, inflation, the usual. But hey, maybe there's a way we could work together. You've got investors, right? Maybe we can figure something out, family helping family." I just stared at him for a moment, remembering all the years I'd been invisible to this man. The way he'd teased me for trying too hard. The smugness at his wedding, when he said, "One day you'll find someone who'll take care of you like mom and dad take care of me." Now, here he was, asking me for help. It should have felt satisfying. It didn't. It just felt empty. I told him I'd think about it, paid for our coffees, and walked out. That night, I lay awake thinking about what family really meant. I had worked my entire life to be seen by them, and now that they finally needed me, it wasn't out of love. It was out of convenience. Still, I couldn't quite bring myself to turn my back completely. Not yet. Because deep down, I still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the moment everything would change. But I was wrong. Because within a month, my brother would do something that turned my world, and my patience, upside down. And this time, I wouldn't forgive him. They say success reveals who people truly are. But I learned something darker. Success reveals who people can't stand you becoming. It started small, the kind of thing you could almost shrug off. Ryan began calling more often, texting every few days with random business ideas. At first, I thought it was nice. Maybe he was trying to reconnect. Then came the comments. "I read that interview you did. They made you sound like some kind of tech genius," he'd say, laughing a little too loud. Or, "It's crazy how fast you got lucky. Timing really is everything. Lucky. Not hard-working. Not disciplined. Lucky." I ignored it, because that's what I'd always done. But then things started to go wrong, little things I couldn't explain. One of our biggest potential clients, a chain of local grocery stores, suddenly backed out of a deal at the last minute. They'd seemed thrilled the week before. When I asked the manager why, he said, "We heard some things about your reliability. Apparently, you're not stable financially." That didn't make sense. Bridge was doing better than ever. 2 days later, my head of operations came into my office holding his phone. "Hey, Leela, did you know someone's been emailing our clients? From a fake account, using your name." My stomach dropped. The emails were designed to look like I was asking for under-the-table partnerships and favor deals. Someone was clearly trying to tank my reputation. We traced the source, a dummy account created under my brother's company domain. When I confronted him, he didn't even look guilty. He just smirked and said, "You can't prove anything. Besides, don't take everything so personally. It's just business." Business. My hands were shaking. "You tried to ruin me, Ryan. Why? What the hell did I ever do to you?" He leaned back and smiled, that same smug, condescending smile he'd worn my entire life. "You got lucky, Leela. You act like you're some kind of success story, but we both know you'll crash eventually. People like you always do. You're too emotional, too desperate to prove yourself. Mom and Dad might think you're impressive now, but you're still the same kid who couldn't even afford a car in college." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I just stared at him, this man who shared my blood, but none of my heart, and realized there was nothing left to fix. All those years I'd spent trying to earn his respect, to make my parents proud, they meant nothing. Because to him, my success wasn't a miracle. It was a threat. I walked out of that cafe, and didn't look back. For a week, I didn't tell anyone what happened. I threw myself into work, patched up the damage, and told my team everything was fine. But at night, I'd sit in my office and stare at the city lights, replaying his words. You'll crash eventually. Maybe that's when something in me shifted again. Not the kind of pain that makes you cry, the kind that makes you plan. Because if Ryan thought he could sabotage me and walk away smiling, he didn't know who he was dealing with anymore. This time, I wasn't the quiet little sister who let things slide. This time, I was a CEO with resources, lawyers, and connections. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. So, I did what I do best. I strategized. And when my revenge finally came, it wouldn't be loud or cruel. It would be elegant. Professional. The kind of revenge that doesn't just hurt feelings, it ruins reputations. And it would all start with one phone call. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I couldn't stop thinking. Ryan had crossed a line he could never uncross. And deep down, I knew why. He couldn't stand that I'd built something without him. My entire life, I'd been told to stay quiet, stay grateful, stay small. And now that I had something worth losing, my own brother wanted to take it from me. Fine. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd show him what dirty looked like, when done by someone who actually knew how to think 5 moves ahead. The next morning, I called my legal advisor, Tara, a woman I trusted with my life. She'd been with me since Bridges' early days. Tara, I said, my voice calm but deliberate. I need to know exactly how far someone can go before it's considered corporate defamation. She hesitated. Why? What happened? I told her everything. The fake emails. The client losses. The link to Ryan's company domain. There was a long pause, then she said quietly, Leela, that's not just sabotage. That's criminal. That word, criminal, echoed in my mind like thunder. But here's the thing. I didn't want to destroy my brother. Not yet. I wanted him to destroy himself, with just a little help from me. So I started small. First, I had my tech team quietly compile every trace of communication between his company and ours, the emails, the metadata, the timestamps. We documented everything. Then, I started reaching out to my network, the investors, the local press, and a few business contacts Ryan had tried and failed to impress. I didn't spread rumors. I didn't lie. I just told the truth, selectively. I'm concerned, I'd say in that soft, measured tone that makes people lean in. Ryan's been reaching out to my clients directly, and some shady things are happening with his business. I'm not accusing anyone, of course, people talk fast. Especially in small business circles. By the end of the month, word had spread that Ryan's company was unreliable, under investigation, and unethical. I didn't need to do much more than plant the seed, his own arrogance watered it for me. Meanwhile, I made another move. Remember that grocery chain that backed out of their deal with me because of his fake emails? I reached out again, personally. I met the owner for lunch, explained what had happened, showed proof of the sabotage, and, very calmly, asked for another chance. He looked horrified. Your brother did this? I nodded. Family's complicated. He signed with me on the spot. Not just the original deal, but an exclusive multi-year contract. When the press release went live, it mentioned that Bridge had recovered from a targeted defamation campaign and was stronger than ever. The story blew up. Suddenly, I was being praised for resilience and leadership, the girl who built a tech empire from scratch and survived betrayal from within her own family. I didn't name names, but everyone connected the dots. My parents did too. A week later, Mom called, her voice trembling. "Leela, what's going on with Ryan? He said people are pulling out of his contracts. He's furious, he says you're spreading lies." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I haven't said a single lie." And that was true. But the truth, when told at the right moment, can be more powerful than any lie. When I hung up, I felt something I'd never felt before, not guilt, not pride. Just peace. For once, I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the one pulling the strings. And Ryan had no idea that I was just getting started. Because my next move wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my story, in front of everyone who had once ignored it. It didn't take long for everything to explode. Ryan's business started crumbling, clients dropping, calls unanswered, his once cocky confidence cracking. Mom and Dad called me in a panic, asking what I'd done. When I walked into their house, Ryan was already there, pacing. He looked nothing like the smug brother I'd grown up resenting, eyes red, voice shaking. "You ruined me," he shouted. "You think you're better than us now?" I kept my tone even. "I didn't ruin you, Ryan. You did that the moment you tried to ruin me." Mom started crying. "Leela, please, you're family." "Exactly," I said quietly. "And family shouldn't need to be reminded who I am only when they need something." The silence afterward was suffocating. Dad opened his mouth to defend him, but for once, words failed him. I stood there, surrounded by the people who had made me feel small my whole life, and realized I didn't need their approval anymore. Ryan's anger, Mom's tears, Dad's silence, none of it could touch me now. Because the invisible daughter had finally become the one they couldn't stop seeing, after that night, something in me changed. For years, I'd dreamed of the moment they'd finally see me, really see me. I thought it would feel triumphant, like some kind of victory. But standing there, watching my family crumble under the weight of their own choices, I didn't feel powerful. I just felt tired. Revenge had given me satisfaction, sure. But peace? That was something else entirely. I spent the next few weeks focusing on Bridge, not as a weapon, but as what it was always meant to be, a bridge between people. I started funding mentorship programs for girls in tech, women who, like me, had been told they weren't enough. The media moved on. Ryan's company folded quietly. My parents stopped calling for a while, and I didn't chase them. For the first time, my life wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was just mine. And maybe that was the real revenge, not their downfall, but my freedom. It had been almost 6 months since I'd last spoken to my family when the email came in. Subject line, "I'm sorry." It was from Ryan. For a minute, I thought it was a prank. But then I opened it, and read words I never thought I'd see from him. He admitted everything. The fake emails. The rumors. The jealousy. He said he couldn't stand that I'd made something real, something mine, while he kept failing. And then he wrote, "You didn't destroy me, Leela. You forced me to see myself." I just sat there, staring at the screen. For years, I'd begged for that, not the apology, but the honesty. I didn't reply right away. I didn't even know what to say. Instead, I went for a walk. The autumn air felt sharp and alive. For the first time, I didn't feel weighed down by what my family thought of me. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about letting someone back in. Maybe it was about letting myself move on. Still, I knew I had to answer him, just not with words. A week after Ryan's email, I sent him a package. No letter. No long explanation. Just a single invoice, framed neatly in glass. At the top, it read, "Bill for my success, $0. And beneath it, in small print, "Paid in full by your doubt." It wasn't about humiliation or payback. It was closure, the only kind that mattered. A few days later, he called. His voice was quiet, stripped of ego. "You always were stronger than I gave you credit for," he said. "I didn't want to be stronger," I replied. "I just wanted to be seen." We didn't say much after that. Maybe we didn't need to. I hung up, took one last look at the skyline outside my office, and smiled. The girl who once got a $50 gift card, while her brother got $50,000, had finally given herself something priceless, worth more than any money or approval. Freedom. And that was the only gift that ever really mattered.